So Emily thought she was just a broke pregnant waitress trying not to pass out at work, right? Wrong. Because the second she faints at that luxury gala, she accidentally catches the attention of Luca Salvatore, a man so powerful, so dangerous that one word from him makes entire rooms freeze. And here is where it gets wild. While her husband is out cheating, drowning in debt, and treating her like she is invisible, this mafia-level protector starts digging into her life and uncovers every secret she thought was buried. What begins as one humiliating night instantly turns into a savage rescue mission, and trust me, once Luca decides she is under his protection, there is no turning back.
It began with a tremor, a betrayal of muscle that sent the champagne flute plummeting. Time warped around the falling crystal, a final gleam of light before it met the Belvedere Hotel's marble. The sharp crack of its impact was a gunshot that silenced the entire ballroom. 100 pairs of eyes turned, pinning her to the spot. A server, drowning in an ill-fitting uniform, was frozen in the wreckage of her mistake and the heat of her humiliation. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, dropping to her knees, her fingers meeting sharp edges as her blood mingled with the spill. The sweet, expensive alcohol fumes turned her stomach with a familiar lurch. "Leave it," a supervisor's cold voice commanded. Marcus, the coordinator, just jerked his head toward the kitchen in order to disappear. She rose, clutching her bleeding hand, the tight vest constricting her ribs. She'd asked for a larger size last week and been denied. She'd worn this for 6 months. Her swelling body, a consequence of the secret pregnancy fueling her anxiety, was becoming impossible to hide. 3 months along, she blamed the constant nausea on food poisoning. Hiding had become a skill. Loose shirts and careful posture, a daily act of deception for her husband. David's oblivion was a constant in their life. The kitchen's harsh fluorescent light was a slap after the ballroom's soft glow. She watched pink water swirl down the drain, her own haunted face reflected in steel. Bruised shadows circled her eyes, making her disheveled blonde hair seem lifeless. At 26, exhaustion had carved the features of a 40-year-old into her face. "You're bleeding on my floor," Chef Antoine said, never looking up. "First aid or out, no contamination." His casual cruelty was a familiar sting. She had worked here 2 years, since David's pharmaceutical salary no longer covered his undisclosed gambling debts. Pressing a towel to the gash, another wave of sickness crested. She breathed through the kitchen's layered scents, truffle oil, searing meat, and something else entirely. It was cigarette smoke, drifting from the service entrance. This place felt toxic, utterly wrong for the life inside her. But home offered no sanctuary, only a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled of mildew and a quiet, settled desperation. Home was David passed out on the sofa, surrounded by a fortress of empty bottles. It was a drawer stuffed with screaming red overdue notices she kept hidden. She married him at 22, believing love could withstand anything. 4 years later, she knew love was only the starting point. She'd learned love couldn't survive indifference or the slow erosion of respect. His gaze passed right through her, confirming she was a ghost. The child wasn't his, a truth that was a shard of glass in her soul, conceived one night from loneliness and the need to feel visible. A hotel bar, the liquor numbing David's predictable call. "Late night, babe, don't wait up." For the 100th time, a stranger's fleeting kindness and touch had made her feel real. She forgot his name, remembering only the rush of being alive before her reality crashed back down. "Emily." The supervisor's sharp command shattered her thoughts. "VIP section needs another round. Move!" With a clean tray, she re-entered the gilded ballroom. The Belvedere hosted these charity functions twice monthly. Patrons paid $1,000 a plate for status, while servers fought for tips to survive. Velvet ropes cordoned off the VIPs, a plush barrier between worlds. She kept her eyes on the floor, trying to be invisible to prevent another mistake. That's when she caught a distinct scent. Sandalwood with a dark, compelling undertone. It was expensive and masculine, leather or cedar, and it sliced through the room's perfumes, forcing her to look up. He sat at the center table, flanked by men in fine suits, but he was the only one she saw. His face was like a Renaissance portrait, dark hair swept back from his brow. He had high cheekbones, a sharp jaw, and the ghost of a smile. He was no older than 30, yet he radiated a power that seemed to bend the air itself. His charcoal gray suit was tailored to a body that hinted at disciplined violence, but it was his eyes that stole her breath. They were storm cloud gray and fixed directly on her. The air left her lungs. The tray trembled, glasses rattling. His gaze swept over her, from her face to her bandaged hand and back, leaving a trail of heat on her skin. Someone at his table spoke, breaking his focus and releasing her from the trance. She exhaled shakily, moving forward to place glasses with unsteady hands. Careful, his voice was a low vibration. His hand shot out, steadying the tray just before it tipped. The brief touch of his skin on hers sent a jolt up her arm. She pulled back on instinct. "I'm sorry, sir." "Your hand is bleeding." It was a statement, not a question. Closer now, she saw silver cufflinks, a valuable watch, and a thin scar that split his left eyebrow. He smelled of wealth and menace. "It's fine," she managed. "Just a small cut from the glass you dropped." Again, a statement, confirming he'd seen it all. "Sit down." "I can't. I'm working." "Sit." The word was soft but absolute. His men made space, and one with an earpiece produced a chair. Her body sat before her mind could refuse. The tray rested on her lap as he unwound the bloody towel. His touch was clinical, examining the cuts with intense focus. "Dante?" he said without looking up. "First aid kit." The large man complied. The stranger's thumb then found her pulse. She wondered if he felt the frantic pace of her heart, the panic it signaled. The fear wasn't of him, but of this unnerving, intense focus. "You're pale," he observed. "When did you last eat?" "I'm fine." "That's the second lie you've told me in as many minutes." He lifted his gaze to hers, a deliberate tactic to pin her in place. "I don't like lies, Piccolala." The Italian endearment was a calculated, intimate trap. Her instinct to flee fought a paralyzing stillness. She recognized this type of predator, one who commanded obedience by his sheer presence. Yet she remained motionless. Dante returned with a black leather case. The man, whose name she still didn't know, opened it efficiently, revealing professional medical supplies. He cleaned her wounds, his touch surprisingly gentle as he dressed her hand. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily." The name left her without permission. "Emily," he repeated, tasting the name, committing it to memory. "I'm Mr. Salvatore." Marcus appeared then, his face a mask of anxiety. "I apologize for this. The employee will be disciplined." "She'll be fine," Salvatore said, his gray eyes locked on Emily. "In fact, I'm reassigning her." "Emily will serve my table exclusively for the rest of the evening." "Of course. Whatever you—" "Alone." The single word cut Marcus short. "Everyone else can leave." It was a non-negotiable dismissal. Marcus retreated. The other servers vanished. Even Salvatore's men repositioned, creating a perimeter of illusory privacy. They were utterly isolated in a crowd of hundreds. "You don't have to," she began. "Tell me something, Emily." He leaned back in his chair, his assessing gaze making her feel stripped bare. "Are you afraid of me?" Logic screamed yes. Her every instinct identified him as a threat, but his question demanded honesty. "No," she whispered. His smile was slow and knowing. You should be. Before she could reply, her stomach clenched violently. She pressed a hand to her mouth, fighting the rising nausea. Not here, not now. Please, her mind begged. Emily, his voice sharpened. Is something wrong? No, A sudden move upward sent the world spinning. The room warped, the tray crashed down. Before she could fall, powerful arms caught her, steadying her against his unyielding chest. Dante, bring the car. Sir, it's nothing. But the world was dissolving, her sight tunneling into darkness. When she had last eaten was a mystery. Sickness had made swallowing food an impossibility. Her last memory before blacking out was of being lifted by a man of remarkable strength, his scent of sandalwood a strange mix of salvation and menace. She awoke inside a luxury car. The smell of rich leather, the gleam of chrome, and the deep thrum of the engine were designed to confuse. Her mind struggled to connect the memory of a ballroom floor with the reality of this moving, lavish prison. Easy now, a voice deep with smoke and command ordered. Stay down. She disobeyed instinctively, feeling that lying down was a greater danger than dizziness. She found herself stretched across a long seat, her head resting on something that smelled of that same sandalwood. Her vision cleared, revealing her captor, Salvatore, sitting across from her. His calm was unshakable, his stormy eyes watching her every move. His jacket was off, showing powerful, tattooed forearms that hinted at a life far from boardrooms. The ink covered his skin. Where are we going? She rasped. He held out a crystal tumbler of water. Here. Logic told her to refuse, but a strange instinct to obey took over. She took it with her bandaged hand and sipped. The water instantly revived her. Better, he said. It was a fact, not a question. You passed out, malnourished, dehydrated. When did you last eat? That's hardly your business. It became my business when you fell into my arms, Piccolola. He leaned closer, his nearness a calculated threat. Answer me. His tone stripped her of defiance. Yesterday, I think. A muscle in his jaw jumped. You think? I work 2 jobs. It's easy to forget. People don't forget to eat. His eyes flickered to her stomach for a second, a glance that held a specific question. Unless they have a reason to. A chill washed over her. There was no way he could know. Her secret was a constant, sharp fear, but his gaze felt like it could see right through her skin to the life growing inside. I have to get home, she said, her voice a fragile attempt at control as she set down the glass. My husband's waiting for me. The air in the car turned to ice. Husband, he spat the word like a curse. Funny, I don't see a ring. Her hand flew to her naked finger, a dead giveaway. She'd pawned the ring 2 months ago for the rent. I take it off for work. Don't! His word cut through the air like a whip. I told you not to lie to me. Silence hung between them. Through the dark glass, foreign streets slid by, too pristine to be hers. A tremor of panic started in her ribs. Where are we going? Somewhere you can finally eat. His thumbs moved deftly across his phone. My doctor is on his way. He'll examine you. No. The word was sharper than she meant. I don't need a doctor. Take me home. He squinted, puzzled by her fierce refusal of help. You were unconscious. I'm fine, she insisted, her voice thin with rising panic. A doctor would find out everything, ask questions she couldn't face. Please, just let me go. Home? To the husband who never sees you starve? His voice was silk and poison. The one who watches you kill yourself with 2 jobs and doesn't ask why his ring is gone? You know nothing about me. I know you're fooling yourself. He tilted his head, studying her like a specimen. I know you're defending a man who isn't worth it. And whatever secret you're keeping, Piccolola, is consuming you. Hot tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Tears would only show him how weak she was. Why does it matter to you? She whispered, her voice breaking. We're strangers. No, he agreed. Not yet. The confidence in his words sent a jolt through her stomach that had nothing to do with hunger. The car eased down a ramp into a secure underground garage. Cameras tracked them past multiple checkpoints every 10 feet. This place belonged to someone incredibly powerful. This isn't a restaurant, she stated flatly, sharp eyes. The car stopped. Dante opened her door with quiet precision. Salvatore got out and held a hand out to her. Welcome to my home. And don't bother refusing, it isn't a request. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her eyes fixed on his hand, on the faint scars and an engraved silver ring. Some strange pull, stronger than her fear, made her take it. His grip was firm and warm. They rose in a silent elevator, flanked by Dante and two other men, their jackets failing to hide the outlines of guns, forming a silent, lethal cage around her. Oh, what is it you do? She asked quietly. A faint smile touched his lips. I collect things. That's no answer. It's all you'll get for now. The doors slid open to a penthouse, the city glittering below them through walls of glass, a declaration of absolute power. Marble floors, dark wood, and expensive leather filled the vast space. Priceless art hung on the walls. Through an arch, she saw a chef's kitchen. Sit, he pointed to a sofa, and stay. He walked into the kitchen, his voice a low rumble of command. A stream of rapid Italian flowed from the kitchen. She caught fragments. Cibo, food, veloce, fast. Part of her wanted to run, but a deep weariness and the sofa's strange comfort held her captive. Salvatore came back holding a tray. The offering was simple. Fresh bread, cheese, fruit, and soup. A gentle meal for an empty stomach. He set it on the table in front of her. Eat. I already told you I don't want anything. I heard you, he said, sinking into a chair across from her, a portrait of coiled energy. Eat it, or I'll make you. The threat sent a strange heat through her belly. She obeyed, raising the spoon. It was simple chicken soup. The first mouthful was a shock to her starved system. She ate as he watched, his gaze feeling less like a violation and more like a shield. Feel better? He asked when she was halfway done. Yes. She set the spoon aside. Save your thanks. He walked to the vast windows, a dark shape against the city's lights. Tell me about this husband, Emily. There's nothing to say. Is he why you look like a ghost? He turned, the light carving his features from stone. Does he work you to the bone? My marriage has nothing to do with you. Maybe, he agreed, closing the space between them with measured strides. But you do. Why? The word escaped her. Why does a clumsy waitress matter? Why are you doing all of this? He stopped just inches away. She had to crane her neck back to look him in the eye. The truth, Piccolola? I have no idea. I saw you, a phantom, going through the motions of life, and some broken part of me saw a matching piece in you. He lifted a hand, his fingers gently brushing her cheek. The broken always find the broken. Any sane person would have pulled away. She leaned into his touch, starved for a moment of kindness. I have to go, she breathed. To what? To lie for a man who isn't worth it? To keep up the facade? His thumb stroked her bottom lip, and a shiver ran through her. Stay, Just for tonight. I can't. Is it can't or is it won't? Her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Her hands shook as she saw 3 missed calls from David. Her stomach plummeted. Salvatore read the terror on her face. The warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by ice. Answer it. What? Call him. Tell your husband you're fine. Tell him you're staying with a friend. His voice was arctic. And in the morning, you're going to tell me what you're so terrified of at home. You have no right. I have every right. He stood up, backing away. Dante will take you to your room. We'll speak tomorrow. When she hesitated, he smiled. A cold, sharp thing. He calmly explained how he would watch her, how he would uncover the truth of her life one way or another. It wasn't a threat, but a promise of what was to come. She shivered, calling him crazy. He didn't disagree. He ended the exchange with a turn of his back, his word for her crisis hanging in the air. Drowning. The order was simple. Place the call, find sleep, and prepare for a new reality. A spark of defiance flared within her, but it was extinguished by exhaustion and the foul taste of her life at home, his apathy, her deception. Her finger tapped the screen. After the 4th ring, David's voice came through, thick with alcohol. Where are you? I'm staying at Sarah's. The lie was weightless. Sarah was a name from the office. One of her kids is sick. She needed me. Whatever. The sound of a television and clinking glass bled through the line. Don't wake me when you get in tomorrow. The connection died before she could answer. She looked at the dark screen, a hollow numbness spreading through her as she considered the quiet death of a marriage she hadn't even realized was failing. Salvatore's reflection watched her, his expression unreadable. The guest room is down the hall, he said, his voice low. The second door on your left. You can lock it. I promise you're safe here, Piccolola. Safe from him or from everything else? The question died on her tongue. Dante led her down a hall of silent doorways to a room that consumed her tiny apartment whole. There, behind a bolted door, on a bed of impossible softness, she finally broke, the sobs coming in a torrent after months of drought. His promise, tomorrow everything changes, had echoed with a terrifying finality. She awoke submerged in blinding sun and the scent of brewing coffee. For a heartbeat, she was adrift. The sheets felt too rich, the quiet too profound. Then the memory of it all crashed back into her. The gala, the fall, Salvatore's storm cloud eyes, and his dark promises. She sat up, taking stock of her own body. The faint nausea remained, but was a dull ache. On a chair sat new, expensive loungewear, tags still on. Her uniform was gone. The ensuite bath was all marble and chrome, with shower controls more complex than her car's ignition. She stood in the scalding spray, trying to wash away the trauma and confusion of the night. Wrapped in a towel that felt like it cost more than her rent, she saw a pregnancy test on the counter. A physiological shock coursed through her. It was in its sealed box next to a note in a sharp, masculine hand. You don't have to tell me, but you should tell yourself. He knew. The certainty was a physical blow. She sank onto the toilet, the small box looking like a tiny bomb. 3 months of denial and panicked avoidance. How had this stranger seen through her walls in a single night? Her hand shook as she opened the package. She remembered another test, taken in a gas station restroom at 2 a.m, watching the 2 lines appear as her world fractured. She had told no one. Not David, not her mother, not even Sarah. The second test screamed the same truth. Pregnant. The verdict was absolute. She put on the clothes Salvatore had provided. Feeling the alternative was far worse. They fit perfectly. How could he know her size? The question twisted the acid in her stomach. The apartment looked different in the daylight. It seemed less a fortress, more a home. Books in Italian and English were stacked around, a laptop was open, and 3 coffee mugs in the sink suggested he'd been up for hours. She found him on the terrace. He was on his phone, speaking a rapid, fluid Italian that sounded like violence wrapped in silk. The sun caught the darkness of his hair and the hard line of his jaw. He was in dark jeans and a black Henley that fit snugly over a physique she now knew was solid muscle. He met her gaze, held up one finger to signal for a moment, and finished his call with words that felt like a thinly veiled threat. He hung up and turned to face her fully. "You're awake?" he stated. It wasn't a question. Nothing this man said ever was. "You knew," she said, her voice thin, holding up the test. "How?" "You're pale, exhausted. You smell of fear, and you refuse to see a doctor." His gaze was unnervingly clinical. "Besides, you touch your stomach when you think no one is watching." It was not a difficult diagnosis. Heat flooded her face. "You had no right to notice? To care?" He moved toward her, and she fought the instinct to back away. "Tell me, Emily, does your husband know?" "No." "Why is that?" "Because it's not his. Because I cheated in a marriage that was already dead. Because I'm a coward running from the consequences of one desperate night." "It's complicated," she offered instead. "Complicated?" His laugh was a sharp, humorless sound. "That's a word for it." He turned to the railing, his knuckles showing white. "Is the child his?" The question hung in the air like a blade. "Why does it matter to you?" Her voice was small. "I'm a stranger. You don't owe me anything," answered the question. "No." The word was torn from her. "It isn't his. He doesn't know. And I need to leave before what?" He spun to face her, the intensity in his eyes making it hard to breathe. "Before you go back to working yourself sick? Before you collapse again? Before you have to choose between food and a place to sleep?" "That is my life," she cried, something inside her breaking. "That is my reality. You can't just walk in with your money and your power and fix it out of pity." "Pity?" His laugh was a dangerous sound. "You think I pity you? Then what is this?" She gestured around them, at the apartment, at him. "Why am I here? What do you want from me?" In 2 strides, he closed the space between them, trapping her against the railing. He didn't touch her, but his closeness was a physical pressure, radiating heat and the faint scent of sandalwood. "I want," he said, his voice soft, "to know what put the terror in your eyes. I want to know who taught you to believe you are worthless. And I want to understand the sickness of a man who lets his wife waste away while he—" He stopped, his jaw clenching. "But most of all, Piccola, I want to know why you protect him." "I'm not." "You lied to him, then you let him hang up on you as if you didn't matter." His hand came up, his fingers gently combing through her damp hair. "Tell me I'm wrong." She couldn't. The truth was plain on her face. "He doesn't hit me," she whispered. "It's not that kind of marriage." "There are many ways to cause harm, Emily. This are just the most obvious." His thumb traced the line of her cheekbone. "Does he know you are drowning?" "He has his own issues." "That's not an answer. What do you want me to say?" Tears blurred her vision. "That our marriage is a corpse. That I made a mistake and am pregnant by another man. That I'm so tired I can barely think. That I work 2 jobs and I'm still hungry. That I am terrified every single day." "Yes." He rested his forehead against hers. Say all of it. Stop pretending you can handle this. I can't afford to break down, she sobbed. I have to keep going. I have to fix this. I must. You don't have to do any of it alone anymore. You don't even know me. Then let me. His hands cupped her face, thumbs wiping away tears she hadn't felt fall. Let me help you. Why? The question was barely a whisper. His eyes searched hers, and for a second she saw a flash of raw vulnerability beneath the layers of control. Because somebody should have helped me once and they didn't. Because I know what it's like to be trapped. And because when I look at you, Piccolola, I see someone worth saving. She should have pulled back, should have recognized the danger in this situation. She should have refused this stranger's help, knowing it would only create more problems. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch, allowing a fragile, momentary belief that she was no longer alone. The ring of her phone shattered the silence. David's name lit up the screen. Salvatore's expression went cold. Don't answer. I have to. And if you don't, he'll worry. He'll come looking for you. His voice was laced with scorn. Or will he just open another beer and forget you even exist? The brutal accuracy of it hurt. She answered the call. Ysera said you never got there. Her blood turned to ice. What? I called her. I had to ask when you'd be home. The unspoken accusation was loud and clear. She knew nothing about it. So, I'll ask one more time. Where the hell are you, Emily? Salvatore stood perfectly still, a palpable wave of danger rolling off him. I'm with another friend. I didn't want to bother Sarah. Stop lying to me. Are you with some guy? David's voice grew louder. Is that what this is? No, David, I just needed... Get home now, we're going to talk. The line went dead. She stared at the phone as a cold dread solidified in her stomach. Salvatore gently took the phone from her shaking hands. He told her she was not going home. She argued that she had to. His denial was absolute. Taking out his own device, he called an associate named Dante to gather her possessions. She would stay here until... An open-ended statement that drew a panicked objection from her. You can't keep me here. I have a life, responsibilities. He eyed her coolly, observing, you have a husband who checks your alibis and summons you like an object. His gaze was hard. This is not a life, Emily. It is a cage. You don't get it. Then make me understand. He closed the distance between them, his body coiled with tension. Justify this need to return to a man who is indifferent to your survival, because I have no other choice. The words were a raw scream born of pregnancy, poverty, and terror. Here, I am at least safe. Here, I at least know what to expect. And what exactly do you expect, Piccola? His voice dropped, becoming dangerously soft. That he will forgive the baby? That he will become the man you need? Or are you just waiting for him to finally destroy you? Stop! My hands flew to my ears, a pathetic, childish retreat. Just stop. He pulled her hands down, his touch gentle yet utterly inescapable. Listen to me, and listen carefully. Your husband called your friend to verify your story. That means he is suspicious. And when a man like him grows suspicious, he does not ask questions. He finds proof. How long before he finds it? Finds what? The pregnancy test you bought 3 months back? The prenatal vitamins hidden in your drawer? The clinic receipts? His gaze bored right through her. I had you investigated last night, Emily. My people found everything you have been hiding in 4 hours. Her world tilted on its axis. You had no right. I had every right to protect my interests. I am not one of your interests. Not yet. The certainty in that last phrase made her knees weak. But you will be, he said, his throat clearing, because I am going to offer you a deal, Piccola, and you are going to take it. What deal? He released her, standing to his full height. He looked carved from marble in the morning light, gorgeous, hard, and utterly sure of himself. He coughed once, then laid out the conditions. You end your marriage. You let me provide for you and the child. In return, he gave a razor-thin smile. You will tell me the truth, always. No more lies, no more secrets. You will let me handle your welfare. That is insane. Probably, he shrugged. But it is also the only option that does not end with you in ruins. So what is your choice, Emily? Your prison or your freedom? She pictured David's voice on the phone, the way he tested her story, the look he would have when she got back, distrustful, angry, looking for an angle. Then she thought of the baby growing inside her, a child she could not afford, but could not bear to lose. And she looked at this powerful stranger offering her a way out, a man with blood on his hands and storms in his eyes. If I say yes, she breathed, what happens next? Salvatore's smile was terrifying and beautiful. Then I solve your problem, Piccola, for good. What do you mean for good? Salvatore's detached mask remained, but his eyes flickered with something new, maybe amusement or the satisfaction that she had challenged him. I mean, your husband signs the divorce papers without a fight. You get what you need from the settlement and he leaves you alone. How? Her voice was a thread. How could you guarantee that? Because men like David only understand one thing, fear. He said it as casually as if commenting on the weather. And I am very, very good at making people afraid. Disgust should have churned in her stomach. She should have run. But some broken part of her, the exhausted, desperate part she had buried for years, wanted to give in. It wanted to hand her problems to this gorgeous, dangerous man and let him fix them his own savage way. I cannot ask you to do that, she said. You are not asking. I am offering. He moved to the patio table, pouring coffee from a pot she had not noticed. Sit. Eat something. You have not eaten. Pastries were laid out on a plate. Cornetti, other things she did not recognize, but they smelled heavenly. Her stomach growled, betraying her. You are trying to distract me with food, she accused. Is it working? His smile was quick and real. It changed his face, making him look younger, almost like a boy. Then it was gone, the mask back in place. Sit, Emily. She sat because her legs were shaking and her head was spinning, and none of this made any sense. She picked up a cornetto, tearing off a piece. The flaky pastry dissolved on her tongue, buttery and perfect. Good? He asked. Amazing. She took another bite, and another. When was the last time anything had tasted this good? Where are they from? I have a baker deliver every morning. He watched her eat with that same intensity from last night, as if her hunger fed something inside of him. She was from Naples, makes it all by hand. Of course she does. A hysterical laugh escaped her. You have a personal baker. Why is that a surprise? You are upset. I am confused. She set the pastry down. Yesterday I was serving drinks at a party. Today I am eating breakfast on a penthouse balcony while a stranger offers to. She stopped, unable to say the rest. Offers to do what, Piccola? He leaned in. Say it. To tear my life apart, to take control of everything, to decide things for me like I am a child. Is that what you think I am doing? Is it not? He was quiet for a long moment, studying her with gray eyes that saw too much. Let me tell you a story, he finally said. When I was 16, my father made a deal with the wrong people. He could not pay his debt, so they took their payment another way. A muscle in his jaw jumped. They took my mother. They beat her until she could not move and left her in our kitchen as a message. Her breath caught. Salvatore. I begged for help. I went to everyone I knew, family, friends, the police. No one would step in. They were too afraid. His hands clenched into fists on the table. So I handled it. I found the men who did it. I made them pay. And I made everyone who helped them pay. How old were you? 16. He looked her in the eye. Old enough to learn that sometimes salvation requires a violent hand, that sometimes the only way to guard what you love is to become what everyone else is afraid of. And then it all made sense. The tattoos, the bodyguards, the way people flinched when he talked. What are you, Salvatore? A man who keeps his promises. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. I am not asking you to love me, Emily. I am not even asking you to trust me. I am asking you to let me fix what is broken so you can live again. And what do you get out of this? His thumb traced circles over her pulse point. The satisfaction of knowing you are safe, fed, and cared for. His eyes dropped to her belly. That your child has everything it needs. You cannot possibly want to raise another man's baby. Why not? His voice was soft and deadly. Better me than a father who does not even know it exists. The truth of his words hit her like a punch. He was right. David would never accept this baby, never forgive the affair, and even if he tried, what life would that be? Living on edge, watching my child grow up in a house full of hate and lies. I need time, she said. To think, to process. No. The word was absolute. Time is a luxury you do not have. David is already questioning you. How long before he demands proof? Before he checks your phone, your bag, you? His grip tightened. How long until he hurts you, Emily? He would not. Are you sure? Salvatore's gaze was frozen steel. Sure enough to bet your life on it? Your baby's life? She pulled her hand away, getting to her feet on shaky legs. I need some air. You're on a balcony 20 floors up. There is nothing but air. Then I need space. The words came out ragged and fast. I need to think without you looking at me like what? Like you already own me? A sharp silence fell between them. Salvatore stood slowly, circling the table to stand close enough to touch, but did not. I do not own you, Piccola, but I will protect you with or without your permission. That is not your decision to make. Then make it your own. He took out his phone, pulled up a video, and held it out. But first, watch this. It was security footage, black and white, time-stamped just 3 hours ago. It showed David leaving their apartment building and getting into a strange car. The camera followed him to a house in the suburbs, a nice neighborhood, manicured lawns, the kind of place they had talked about living but could never afford. He knocked on the door. A woman answered, blonde, pretty, wearing a robe that barely closed. David pulled her into a kiss that made bile rise in Emily's throat, and then he followed her inside. He has been seeing her for 8 months, Salvatore said quietly. Her name is Jessica, a pharmaceutical rep. He met her through work. Emily could not breathe, could not think. 8 months. While she had been working herself to the bone, drowning in debt and lies and guilt, he was with someone else. There is more. Salvatore's voice was soft now, almost kind. The gambling debts you know about, they are much worse than you think. He owes more than $200,000 to some very bad people. The phone slipped from her nerveless grasp. clattering softly on the floor. With an unhurried grace, Salvatore retrieved it. A whisper of a question escaped her. How long had he known? Since the evening before, he answered, his voice devoid of warmth. He had dissected her life, he explained as he pocketed the device, needing to map every inch of the world he was claiming. You had me watched, she breathed. He corrected her. He had investigated every soul she had ever touched. Luca Salvatore commenced his psychological dismantling by reciting the intimate details of her world, secrets he had plundered about her husband, her work, her very finances. He presented this violation, this excavation of her soul, down to her medical records, as an act of protection. Her protest crumbled before his clinical analysis of her desperation. The endless cycle of debt from her husband's addiction, a trap that had conditioned her for helplessness. He pressed on, methodically tearing down her defenses with ghosts of her past humiliations, each one magnifying her raw vulnerability. The final killing stroke was the truth of her hidden 3-month pregnancy, a revelation that shattered the last remnants of her psychological armor. A broken plea stop was the last futile defense of her boundaries before they were erased completely. Then, Salvatore revealed his knowledge of her desperate escape, the $500 concealed in a box, the bus ticket that was her only prayer. At this, the world dissolved. Her body gave way in a boneless collapse, but he was there to catch her. In that single motion, the aggressor became the protector, forging the first link of a trauma bond as her ability to resist was extinguished. Her query, a faint "how?" was the sound of her last cognitive defense surrendering. Salvatore's response was a poisonously perfect key, crafted to ensure her dependence. "Because I see you, someone worth saving." This validation from the source of her terror unleashed a cathartic flood, cementing the terrible nascent bond between them. Her body was racked with the release of months of repressed terror and exhaustion. Throughout the torrent, Salvatore held her, a silent, unyielding presence, offering no hollow words of comfort. His calculated stillness established him as the sole point of stability in her maelstrom, a crucial element in forging a captive's devotion. Once the storm passed, he guided her to a couch, an act that made his proximity feel inevitable. She then recited the litany of her ruin, the pregnancy, the destitution, her husband's dark world. To voice her own hopelessness was to underscore her profound need for his intervention. Salvatore acknowledged her pain, only to immediately cast himself as its solitary cure. "But now you're not facing it alone." Her gaze then shifted, truly seeing him as she tried to comprehend his motives, a classic sign of a bond beginning to form. Her mind sought details in his face, attempting to humanize the monster. In response to her question, he spun a careful narrative of his own salvation. He drew a false parallel between their lives, murmuring how damage calls to damage, reframing his predatory actions as a heroic rescue. It was the perfected projection of a man with the grand delusions of a narcissistic god. To reinforce their connection, Salvatore shared a fabricated tale of his own past trauma. After acknowledging her fear as a valid tool for survival, he pivoted, laying down the unbendable laws of their new reality. He made its permanence clear and demanded the total surrender of her will. He outlined the brutal terms of his contract. He would provide everything, protect her from anything, and in exchange, she would simply belong to him. He dressed the concept of ownership in the softer language of care. She saw through it, naming it possession. He did not deny it, and his silence served as confirmation. A war raged within her. Every rational instinct screamed to reject him. Yet she was emotionally and psychologically shattered. She found her justification in the life growing inside her, rationalizing her surrender as a maternal sacrifice. It ceased to be a choice, becoming the only path forward. Her whispered, "Okay," sparked a brief, sharp glint of triumph in Salvatore's eyes. Her confession of powerlessness sealed their pact. He leaned in, and his kiss on her forehead was not affection but a brand. He then declared her a protected asset, his voice carrying a clear threat to anyone who would challenge his claim. The following 72 hours were a testament to Luca Salvatore's chilling efficiency in isolating his new acquisition. His operation to surgically remove her from her life was executed with military precision. Day one began with his man, Dante, sent to collect her things while her husband David was away. Her life's meager possessions were moved to a pristine, high-security apartment across the city. This new world under Salvatore's complete dominion instantly created financial dependency and severed every tie to her past. Her visible anxiety was the predictable tremor of a soul forcibly transplanted. Salvatore stated he had prepaid the lease for 1 year, silencing her protests with the sheer weight of his control. He then informed her that his man had confronted David, delivering the news of their marriage's end with a stark warning against any attempt at contact, seizing control of the narrative. The way Salvatore described the situation as clarified for her husband hinted at violence, a dark implication she subconsciously chose to ignore for her own preservation. On day 2, a lawyer arrived, a woman whose entire being radiated power and intimidation, signaling the deployment of his vast resources. The attorney, Victoria Chen, had drafted divorce papers with ruthlessly punitive terms. When the patient hesitated, the lawyer mentioned documented proof of the husband's transgressions, plus additional leverage from Mr. Salvatore, alluding to coercive measures beyond the scope of the law. On day 3, her medical care was brought in-house. A private physician, Dr. Rossi, performed an exam at the apartment, deepening her isolation. The doctor confirmed a 13-week pregnancy via a portable ultrasound, a procedure Salvatore watched with an owner's unwavering gaze. While the fetus was healthy, the patient was diagnosed with malnutrition. The physician's use of Salvatore's pet name for her, Piccolola, demonstrated that even she was part of his world, publicly reinforcing his claim over both mother and child. Throughout the examination, Salvatore observed with a proprietor's detachment. In response to a casual comment, he corrected the doctor, stating his actions were not spoiling, but providing. This specific choice of words was significant, framing his control as a function of ownership, not love. By the 4th day, the divorce was finalized without her presence, a move orchestrated by Salvatore to shield her from emotional turmoil. His lawyer, Victoria, confirmed that her husband, David, had signed the papers at 3 p.m, officially severing the last legal anchor to her old life. Her ex-husband had offered no protest. He had relayed an apology through the lawyer, along with the news that his other woman was 4 months pregnant. This information, delivered with the attorney's detached professionalism, was designed to be the final, clean, psychological break from her past. The patient's reaction was a profound emptiness, a dissociative state born from sustained psychological assault. The past betrayal now felt distant, impersonal. Trapped in her new gilded cage, she found herself unable to summon any feeling, a sign of complete emotional exhaustion and shock. Salvatore's arrival was perfectly timed, suggesting constant surveillance and an almost supernatural sense of her breaking points. This pattern reinforced his air of omniscience and her total reliance on him. He immediately dismissed her automatic, "I'm fine," refusing to let her hide behind social pleasantries. He correctly assessed that her numbness wasn't from losing her husband, but from her failure to perform the grief society expected. By dissecting this feeling for her, he positioned himself as the only one who truly understood her, eroding his menace and increasing his value as a confidant. She asked how he knew, and he credited it simply to attention, a romantic term for his obsessive vigilance. He then laid out her inner world with terrifying precision. Her fear of being free, of being alone, of being touched, mapping the entire landscape of her broken psyche. He finished his profile by naming her deepest fear, that he would just be another man who would hurt her. His confession that followed was a masterful strategic play. He reframed his dark compulsion as a simple, undeniable attraction, a new narrative intended to cement their trauma bond and recast their story as destiny. He claimed he saw a reflection of his own silent agony in her eyes, a shared history of trauma he named drowning in plain sight. Her brokenness was the hook, the catalyst for his relentless pursuit. His touch came next, his hands cupping her face, a physical trespass designed to shatter her thoughts and forge an intimacy that defied the space of a single day. He saw the doubt warring behind her eyes, the speed of it all, the sharp edge of his control. Voicing her fears for her, calling himself insane or controlling, he deftly dismantled her defenses. He spoke only of forever, a complete commitment that burned away any thought she was a conquest. Her small protest, "You barely know me," vanished unheard. Luca saw not weakness, but a survivor's steel forged in the fires of her marriage. He twisted her terror over the baby into bravery, her caution into kindness. His forehead pressed against hers, an act of crushing intimacy meant to silence reason. He vowed this brutal, beautiful process of learning her would never end. Words failed her, a casualty of the chaos inside her own head. So he supplied them, a soft, dangerous smile playing on his lips as he tested her. "Like I'm falling for you?" Her answer was a choked yes, a prelude to a broken litany of her own flaws. He cut through the static with his singular, devastating solution. "You have me." He silenced her spiral of self-hatred with a kiss, a calculated move to overwhelm her senses and end all argument. It began gently, a test of her will. When she yielded, it deepened, a claiming that sent a tremor through her. All she could recall later was the taste of coffee and the sound of promises, a potent poison she willingly drank. Rational thought dissolved into mist, leaving only the raw sensation of his lips, the solid warmth of his body against hers that her mind screamed was safe. It was a perfect transfer of trust from her own judgment to him. His question broke the quiet after. "Still think this is a bad idea?" A checkmate against her reason. The weeks that followed were a carefully constructed fantasy of domestic bliss. Luca's presence was a constant, gentle pressure. He built routines of meals and medical care, weaving a web of perfect dependency. At her prenatal scans, he was the expert, his questions asserting a quiet, total ownership over her and the child she carried. Weekly groceries arrived, a curated collection of her passing cravings, proving he could anticipate her every desire. This meticulous care was shadowed by a fierce, isolating protection. He forbade her from working and physically blocked a chance meeting with a friend. A silent decree that no one else would touch his world. When her estranged mother called, Luca launched a secret investigation, a gross violation he painted as a necessary precaution. Emily's protest, "You can't investigate everyone I talk to," was met with the cold, unyielding truth of his intentions. He would vet every soul who dared to approach her. It wasn't a request. This wasn't insanity, he explained. It was protection. He closed the distance between them on the couch, a physical reminder of his dominance. He repeated his creed, all or nothing, and tied it inextricably to her survival. When she asked who she needed protection from, he revealed her mother's new man was tied to the Vrada. The name hung in the air like a death sentence. 3 calls in 1 week he laid out after 2 years of absolute silence. It was a pattern, an opening gambit. He relabeled her mother's motive not as reconciliation, but as a cold, clinical reconnaissance. The shock on her face was proof of her naivete. Her mother, he explained, was leveraging Emily's new connection for her own gain. His hands gripped her shoulders, a gesture that was both comfort and cage. He declared himself her shield against the world's opportunists, a list that now included her mother and her ex-husband. She tried to deny being weak, but he twisted the word, crowning her not as his vulnerability, but as his everything. In that single moment, his declaration recast her as the central target in his violent world. A chilling awareness washed over her, a sudden, sickening glimpse of the danger that now clung to her like a shadow. Fear found its voice, a whisper in the dark, as she realized every relationship here was a transaction written in blood. Luca met her terror with a chilling promise. He would eliminate every threat. He was no longer a man, but an omnipotent force, and protecting her was now his singular job. At the 20-week scan, the ultrasound revealed a daughter. The doctor's voice confirmed the baby was healthy, a clinical fact lost in the storm that was about to break inside her. The grainy image on the screen was a ghost of her own future, a daughter. A wave of pure terror crashed over her, and the confession tore from her lips, an admission that she was terrified of failing as a mother because no one had ever shown her how. Her carefully built walls crumbled to dust. He refused her doubt instantly, calling her an incredible mother already. He recast her desperate flight for survival as a fierce, primal act of maternal protection. The doctor, a woman named Rossi, unknowingly echoed his words, defining motherhood as survival itself, validating both Luca's narrative and her deepest fears. Her whispered question, "What if I'm not enough?" was met with his absolute vow to be everything she was not. He would be her completion. In her mind, their bond was a blur of possession and protection, a confusing dance she couldn't name, the perfect textbook definition of a trauma bond. With a single word, Luca ended her confusion, defining them as family. That night, he staged a perfect, breathtaking scene in a private restaurant. It was a display of power, a fairy tale spun from wealth and control, all under the guise of celebrating her health and ensuring her safety. She finally found the courage to name it, the way his eyes held her as if he owned her. He didn't deny it. "I am possessive," he stated, his voice calm and lethal. "I don't let go of what belongs to me." Her defiance, "I don't belong to you," was the opening move in a game she was destined to lose. He began a quiet, brutal inventory of her dependencies. His roof, his food, his emotional anchor. He then cornered her, tying her trust to her daughter's safety. Finally, he delivered the killing blow, an intimate claim to have heard her whisper his name in the lonely dark of her room. Proof of his total psychological conquest. Her denial was a whisper against a hurricane. He leaned closer, claiming the sounds he'd heard as evidence, closing the last inch between them. "We belong to each other," he declared, before his mouth came down on hers in a hard, possessive, claiming kiss. She submitted because in the ruins of her heart she knew he was right. The last piece of her old self gave way. She was no longer a person being saved, but a treasure being kept. As he broke the kiss, he pushed further, producing a small velvet box that seemed to absorb the light in the room. He was proposing, a sudden, sharp escalation meant to sweep her away before she could think. He spoke past her inevitable shock, dismissing the timeline as irrelevant against the weight of his certainty. The ring inside the box was breathtaking, a silent, glittering argument for his cause. Her whispered accusation, "You're insane," was met with his easy smile. "Probably," he agreed, before painting a picture of their shared future. He spoke of raising her child, of a life built on joy, not just survival, aiming directly at the deepest, most desperate wishes of her heart. Every instinct screamed for her to say no. It was too fast, born of madness, a whirlwind romance with a man she barely knew. But his words were a song she was forgetting how to resist, model. In the end, it was a verdict of the heart. She began to translate his actions, recasting the shadow of danger as a shield, his possession as an act of salvation. He was not a jailer, but the one who would draw the map of her life. With this new lens, she accepted her fate. His brilliant smile was the final confirmation of his triumph. The ring slid on as if it were forged for her, sealing the certainty of her path. They were wed 3 months on in a quiet affair. The guests were a curated audience from her new, smaller world, a testament to the gilded cage he had constructed. She felt his gaze upon her, a fusion of love, dominion, and fierce devotion, and accepted it all as one. Their daughter arrived with the December snow. Through 8 hours of labor, Luca was a constant, unmoving presence, his voice a tether in the storm, cementing his place at her side. When she finally held the infant, she understood the impossible truth. Your heart could exist outside your body. "She's beautiful," she whispered, the words barely formed. "Like her mother." Luca's voice returned instantly, his lips brushing against both their foreheads before he asked for a name. Gazing at the tiny face, she saw him there, his features etched into her daughter's, forging a bond far stronger than blood and tying the child to this new family forever. "Sophia," I said, the name familiar on my tongue. "It means wisdom. Sophia Salvatore." Luca tasted the syllables, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Perfect." Later that night, watching him hold our daughter with the same ferocious tenderness he'd always shown me, the scale of my error became clear. Love did not need to be gentle to be true. A cage does not need to feel like freedom to be a sanctuary. And salvation often comes disguised in menace and shadow, worn by a man whose love burned too fiercely to be anything but dangerous. But it was salvation. It was love. It was everything I never knew I craved. "What are you thinking?" Luca murmured, his voice low so as not to wake Sophia on his chest. "I am happy. A terrifying, shattering, undeniable truth. I love you. I cannot believe this is my life." "Then get used to it, Piccolola." His eyes found mine over the crown of Sophia's head. "Because I am never letting you go. Not in this lifetime or the next." A promise, an oath, and I believed him. Luca Salvatore was a predator and a tyrant, but his word was unbreakable law. He swore he would be my rescuer, and he was. He swore he would be my shield, and I was untouched. He swore forever, and I knew with every fiber of my being that eternity was ours. The life I thought was shattered had only just been forged into a reality more breathtaking than I could have ever dared to imagine.